Hello, and welcome to Totally Schway Flipside, a podcast about whatever the hell I want it to be about. My name's Mary.
My name is Luke.
And today we're going to continue to talk about X-Men 97. But first I'd like to ask, hey Luke, what have you been up to?
We didn't discuss talking about what I've been up to, so I'm unprepared. No, I just work all day, and then I spend ages working on my videos over on my channel. That is my life now. Although, people that subscribe to your channel will know that we've been touring, lol. We've been visiting some local comic shops looking for animated series tie-in comics.
And Barbie comics.
Yeah, and Barbie comics for you
Obviously.
as well. But, you know, I've been getting Teen Titans Go and Batman Strikes. Got most of the X-Men Adventures comics. I think I'm only missing one issue now, possibly. And spoilers for the latest video you put out. But you actually found some Barbies, didn't you?
Yeah, I found 3 of them. I can never remember which ones I have and don't have. But I've got, well, not me. You've got a list on your phone of what I have and don't have. I know I don't have the Halloween specials, which I will find. Come hell or water's high. Yeah. I'm also looking for old Barbie coloring books because it's my life and I can do whatever the hell I want, I guess. Shall we get into talking about episode 5, Remember It? And that's episode 5 of X-Men 97. So would you like to start with giving a brief description of the episode?
Well, I think the briefest description you could say for this episode is that everything goes to hell. Mm-hmm. I mean, before we talk about the most memorable stuff, I think we should probably get to some of the other interesting stuff that perhaps gets a little bit outshined by the last 5 minutes of the episode.
All right, I've written some notes, some points.
Okay.
I'll tell you what they are. Genosha, Madeline Pryor,
Mm-hmm.
Scott's Minty Bee, Magnus and Rogue, Gambit, Just Friends, for a little bit of the episode, and totally 90s dance featuring Ace of Base, Happy Nation. And then obviously the last 5 minutes of it, but
Yeah.
can you describe that in a brief point? No, you can't, because tear-stained notes. So, in this episode, they travel, a few of the X-Men travel to Genosha, which is a nation filled with mutants. And it's a beautiful place with beautiful people where they can feel they are free to be themselves. They can use their powers without judgment, without like being arrested or anything like that. And it's cool because you see mutants, you see Morlocks, you see Dazzler do her dazzling.
Can I just also call out that guy Exodus, the one with the purple skin, sort of reddish pink skin, wearing the white robe, and his I don't know how to describe that dance he does, but I just found it really amusing because it just seemed completely out of sync with what everyone else was doing. But I guess that's kind of the spirit of Genosha, isn't it? Everyone's different and they all peacefully coexist.
Yeah. There's not much to say about Genosha other than it's one of those places that you wish existed in real life. As it is, or as it was in the beginning of the episode, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting political commentary in there as well, like when they walk through the market and see that the price of a single apple is $10.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because of the trade restrictions imposed on them by the United Nations, because they would not allow a mutant nation to exist. And on that day, they're going to sign them into the United Nations to give them a seat at the table.
Yeah, you don't even, like, even in London, an apple's not $10.
No.
Not even at Whole Foods in London.
No.
Maybe $9.99. I'm joking.
Are you saying that there's a trade embargo on London?
Maybe.
Specifically the Whole Foods sections of London?
I mean, stranger things have happened. All right, so what is your first point?
All right, so it's kind of tied into this section you're talking about, but I want to talk about Nightcrawler for a minute.
Ah!
He is so joyous, and I love the exchange he has with Gambit, where he just says, "For God's sake, why don't you just marry Rogue already?"
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Just
he probably
do
wouldn't
it.
take the Lord's name in vain, but...
Oh, no.
And Gambit says he's too busy sinning, and Nightcrawler says to him, but there can be no love without sin.
Sure.
Well, he clarifies,
Yeah.
say that, the measure of love is what we forgive in people. Which I thought was a very, I can't think of the adjective at the moment, poignant,
Nightcrawler.
accurate.
Nightcrawler, the poet of the X-Men. The Shakespeare of the X-Men.
No, that's Magneto. Magneto's the Shakespeare of the X-Men. Because he says things, "We shall not live the rest of our days thinking about those we could have saved." Or whatever. I've misquoted him. I apologise. I am not the Shakespeare of Genosha.
The Ernest Hemingway of the X-Men.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to say it. The Stephen King of the X-Men.
Well, that's the thing with Nightcrawler, is that his personality and his philosophical approach is completely the opposite of what you would expect based on his physical appearance. Because, he's supposed to look like a demon, but he's actually one of the kindest, most wonderful people in the world.
Kind of looks like our cat, Gilgamesh.
Does a little bit, yeah.
I would end up, scratching the tip of his chin, like, "Cuckoo, baby.
It's like, don't patronise me.
Gilgamesh! Cuckoo! Gillards!"
Yeah.
My name is not Gilgamesh. I want to mention Scott's Minty Bee. It is the teenage petulance that comes out in him.
I disagree. I don't think it's teenage petulance. Are you referring to his interview with Trish Tilby?
Yes!
That's not petulance. It's no way.
It makes me feel that way because he's not using his words to talk to the people he needs to talk to, so he's just like, God.
No, he starts out providing the typical Boy Scout answers, like, "When I lead the X-Men field team, everything is wonderful, blah, blah, blah." Mm-hmm. But then as soon as Trish brings up his son, he kind of clams up a little bit and doesn't want to talk about it. And then she accuses him of lying and saying, "Well, why are you lying about your son?" And I really like his little speech there where he says, because I lied to you because you're normal, you don't know what it's like. I have to sit here and answer your questions and prove that I'm a real person. By default, people don't believe that he is a person with thoughts, feelings, etc.
I still think there's a bit of petulance there because he could be speaking to Madeline and he could be speaking to Jean about these problems rather than a reporter. He could be like, "No comment." Or something like that. But it's not. We wouldn't have this TV show if it wasn't for moments like this. And I'm not saying it was the wrong thing or the right thing, but it just reminds me of a scorned teenager a little bit. Because that's the kind of attitude that Scott kind of gives off sometimes. Especially in some of the episodes where he's like, "Gah!"
Not.
Yeah. But I love that. See, it might come across as me saying, "Oh my God, how could they put that in there?" That could very well be the type of attitude I have sometimes. But I just feel that's how I feel it was. I don't really have a better description of it. We needed it for this episode so you can see this whole episode it's like a recipe that you find on in a magazine or something. Each little piece each little ingredient, including Scott's blow up, and all of that, it all comes together to make this beautiful cake of an episode. And as if any of you bake, you know that baking is a science, and it needs to be nearly you have to go by the recipe. And I think if anything that was in this episode was cut, it wouldn't be the masterpiece that it is.
Yes. I just wanted to follow up on something you said about Scott should be talking to people. Well, that's the issue. He is talking. He's talking to Madeline. He feels more comfortable speaking to her than he does Jean. And that's kind of a problem for Jean. Mm-hmm. And I don't agree with her stance that, you've got to choose between her and me, because, okay, they're not the same person, but they have got the same basic fundamental aspects to themselves. I mean, there is a point where they diverged, but they're not massively different people.
I have to be controversial here and say this. I don't really have an opinion on the matter in terms of whether he chooses Madeline or Jean. Well, I mean, there's only one for him to choose now.
Well, yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
Well, as far as we know. But I don't think in any type of relationship, I know this is like an animated series, but I don't think in any type of relationship anyone would have to choose. But in this particular thing, I have no opinion on the matter because I don't know them enough.
Mm-hmm. That's fair enough. I mean, the thing is, Madeline and Jean are very, very similar.
But they're not the same. Because they have the same experiences, but it's like twins, for example, that live life together. But they have the same memories, but somehow they're different.
Well, that's a philosophical question, isn't it? Because there's a question of nature and nurture.
Why did you bring Phil into this?
Big philosophical from Greece.
Of course it's from Greece.
Oh, just Sophocles sounds like a Greek name to me. I don't know. The Phantasm, he's Greek. He'll comment. He'll probably just say, "You are talking out of your derriere. You know nothing about Greece," and I apologise. What was I saying? Yeah, but the philosophical question there is, what exactly is it that builds up our personality? What defines it? Is it our memories? Is it our DNA? If Madeline and Jean both share the same memories and the same DNA, are they the same person? I mean, we don't think they're the same person because one chooses to name themselves Madeline Pryor and make a complete break from it, from their Jean Grey identity, I should say. But it's clear that Jean does share Madeline's memories because Jean says she remembers giving birth to Nathan, and that happened long after the split.
She saw the life. She had the life for a little bit, and she was like, "No, thank you."
Yeah, I'm running off to a tropical island where our people are oppressed and charged $10 for apples. God knows how much a block of cheese is. It's better than staying at the X Mansion.
Cheese is one of my downfalls in life. Like, it is my thing. It is the thing that prevents me from being a vegan one day. Mm-hmm. I love it too much. So I unfortunately could not live in Genosha without having to sell my home because I have to have cheese.
Yeah. And that would buy us, what, about 2 weeks worth of cheese?
Yes.
Genoshan cheese.
And then we'll have to start selling off your comic books.
Unless there is like a mutant there whose mutant power is that he generates cheese. But I'm not sure if I want to eat the mutant cheese.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I love mutants and I love cheese, but I don't... Is this cheese just made of like little atoms that have like mini cheeses inside those cheeses? Or is it like, where's the cheese actually coming from? Is it little particles from the mutant? So am I eating the mutant?
Does he regurgitate it? That's the thing.
Yes.
How is that worse than...
an udder?
Yeah, a cow's udder.
That is the question.
That is the question, isn't it? Because I've always thought it was like cow's milk was really gross. Like, I don't mind the way it tastes, and obviously it's got nutritional benefit, just the idea of it. And I want to know who came up with that idea. No, I'm not going to go into it. Just one day some guy's walking along going, you know what? I've got an idea.
Here's the thing. I drink almond milk, but I eat cheese because of the different processes. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I need to explain that, but if there was a mutant that regurgitated cheese, it depends on how the oral hygiene of the mutant was, if I'm being honest.
So he flosses his teeth before he regurgitates the
Obviously,
cheese. It's fine.
Who doesn't floss? If you don't floss, I mean,
I don't floss every day, but I'm English, so you know.
I floss nearly every day because it's one of those things that I do that I know it's not the most eco-friendly thing, but I have those little plastic ones that have the floss pre-strung on them. Guys, I try very hard to be eco-friendly, but that, my friends, that's something I don't want to give up. Okay, so what's another point that you have?
So, all right, before we move on to talking about the gala and the final 5 minutes, I think it's worth talking about Rogue and Magneto. So,
yeah, I've got that as well.
Yes. So I mentioned in previous episodes how much I really like Magneto. I think he's the best character in this entire series.
Yeah.
However, his backstory, or I should say Rogue's backstory, where she reveals that she had a relationship when she was younger, probably in her teens, is gross. It's just... So the thing I find troubling is that, one, Mystique took her to Magneto and just offered her up on a silver platter. Now, you could argue that she's taking her adopted daughter to Magneto to learn about mutant culture and perhaps to control her powers. I could imagine that Mystique was having a hard time with Rogue, because Rogue isn't, at least at that point, wasn't as militant as Mystique and her Brotherhood of Evil Mutants were. So, you know, she might send Rogue over to Magneto to kind of teach her to be a bit more indignant about everything. And you know, initially Magneto is a tutor for her. But when they realise they can touch, that's when they start getting down. And then I find that problematic, because Magneto, even if this was in the 80s, Magneto would have been in his 50s.
And also, it's a teacher-student thing as well.
Yes.
And that's... Some universities have... That's just... You don't do that. It's...
Well, yeah.
And others, it's frowned upon. But I just think... No.
Yes. Yeah. It really shouldn't happen. It's an abuse of a position of power. Even though, okay, yes, Rogue clearly consented and... thought it was a good relationship that they had, despite Magneto's inner turmoil. It's still an abuse of power and wrong. Choosing to date when they are, you know, when Rogue is in her 30s, as she seems, or at least her 20s or 30s in the show. I mean, ultimately, that's fine. Because, you know, she has made the conscious choice. She was the one that did pursue it, at least initially, and then broke it off. Because, as Gambit said, some things are more than skin deep.
Yeah. The thing about in her 20s or 30s is he is no longer the teacher.
Yeah.
And he is no longer the adult.
He is the leader of the team, though.
That's different, though. Because a leader and a teacher are different. Because at times, Scott is the leader. If you want to go on missions and stuff, Scott can be, you know, called the leader. And he still is with Jean sometimes.
Or Madeline.
Yeah, sometimes. So that's a little bit different. But being the teacher and the student is a bit, and I'm going to say what you have on your notes, gross.
Yes. Yeah, and it's not the only time Magneto's done something bad. Like in his first appearance in X-Men the Animated Series, he took control of some nukes and just launched them at the US. And Storm ended up taking them down. Yeah. But he was quite happy to just blow up thousands, potentially millions of people to ignite a war between humans and mutants.
Yeah.
And in which countless people would have died. But I digress.
Why is it that all of the teachers in these shows are like good looking, smart people that the people like want to date or whatever. And then you had teachers like we had. No, ma'am. No, sir. No, them. Absolutely not. Not my jam.
Well, I think most of the mutants they're generally designed to be good looking. Mm-hmm. If unconventional looking.
Can't relate.
I think X-Men is a very kind of sexually charged franchise because it's a soap opera, and that's like, I was going to say the lowest form of drama, but that's not really true.
No, that's not true.
No, that's unfair of me to think that.
I cannot think in my life where I had, like, I guess what people would say, a hot teacher. And that is sad. Well, I should say this, a hot teacher with mutant powers.
No, none of us have had that. No, as far as
that's
we're aware.
sad. Like, where's my teacher that can, like, if I don't have a pencil, just float one to me? Literally float one to me. I mean, I'm waiting for an answer.
Yeah.
Where is it?
I don't know.
So, my next bit after, because I had Magnus and Rogue on my points as well. The Gambit just friends.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this episode is entirely designed to give Gambit his moment.
Break. Can't catch a break.
Well, he succeeds in the end,
yes,
sort of.
Beautifully.
Yes, yeah.
But Gambit is one of those, like, again, it's I'll say this about locations in these shows, the shows themselves, whatever. You wish and you hope for a friend like Gambit or a loved one like Gambit, because Gambit is looking out for you. If he loves you, he will do anything for you, and that also includes watching you with another man.
The way you phrase it made it sound a bit creepy, but it's not.
Like watching you like love another person.
Yes, because he knows that touch is very important to Rogue, and it's something he can't give her, and because he loves her, he allows her. Allows her. That's not really the right way of phrasing it. But
he watches her.
No, he gives her his blessing.
Yeah.
It's not really his blessing to give, but Rogue is seeking it anyway, I think.
Definitely. But it's that, I don't know, I can't remember if they explicitly say just be friends.
Yeah, they do. Just for now, I'll be your friend.
Yeah, and it's just so beautiful. And then in the end, when she decides, spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen this, you should go watch it. In the end, it makes the ending so much more powerful because she actually decides touch is not everything.
No. I mean, she might think that because she's just kissed a 60-year-old dude, but I don't know.
Yeah. But no, it's a beautiful thing. And then, keep hitting something in here. I'm sorry, I just get sad every time I think about this because it's something that we've watched the entire series and then the entire first series of the show. Yeah. And you get to the point where you're rooting for them so much and you think it's finally going to happen, and then you realize no, it's not.
No.
Unless Gambit ends up back for season 2, but we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, so I guess we're going to talk about the last 5 minutes of this episode now.
Yeah, so the Sentinels.
It's a singular sentinel, really. It's a mega sentinel.
I say that because of the heads.
Well, Gambit calls it a Godzilla sentinel.
Oh, yeah, the Godzilla sentinel.
Yeah.
Comes in and F's everything up.
Yes, yeah, and the thing... So after this episode came out and we watched it for the first time, over the course of a week, I probably watched those last 5 minutes probably 10 times over. Like most mornings before work, I go, you know what, I'm going to watch those 5 minutes... I'm going to watch those 5 minutes of X-Men 97 again, just to take it in, because I found it so touching and painful. And the thing that I really was so impressed by is the way that this terrorist attack on Genosha can be interpreted in so many ways.
Oh, God, yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind, with the buildings collapsing and the smoky streets, is obviously 9/11 imagery. Mm-hmm. And then when you see... This is particularly emphasised in one of the later episodes when Professor X learns what happens. He's like, they were dancing and making love and they killed them. They killed my children. Oh, I'm getting a bit teary now. It evokes images of things like the Pulse nightclub shooting.
Oh, God,
where,
yeah.
particularly because it's a party and people were dancing and drinking wine and making love, as Professor X says. And there's just... an explosion out of nowhere, and all of those lives are snuffed out. Everything that Genosha could have been has been taken away by the acts of some small-minded, petty cowards. Everything,
I think, in this episode can be summed up when Nathan says, "I'm sorry, Mom."
Yeah.
And he starts... He's fading away, but because he's leaving that time. But also it's kind of like he's backing up a little bit because he knows what's going to happen, and he can't fix it. I mean, he's tried.
Yes, yeah.
But
he later says he tried over 200 times, 200 different ways of stopping it, and it just kept happening. It's a fixed point in history,
and that's an important part of the episode because it just. Before you see everything else, you feel it in that moment before it even happens because you're like, oh, God, he knows something.
Yes, he comes running out of the crowd. You just see Cable come running out of the crowd.
Turn off the music.
Yeah, everybody out, run! Mm-hmm. And he says when he sees his mother, he goes, I'm sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
And she says, what for? And then, poof, green flash of energy.
Yeah.
And dozens, if not hundreds, maybe even thousands of people dead. You see some well-known characters as well, like Dazzler.
Mm-hmm. Leech.
Yeah, well, Leech is later on. But you see Dazzler's dead laying on that rooftop after Nightcrawler grabs Gambit and Rogue.
Yeah.
Callisto, you see her die. Sebastian Shaw, he died. And I misquoted this speech from Magneto earlier on where he says, Gambit and Rogue will clear a path and get to the Morlocks. We shall not live the rest of our days thinking that we could have saved more.
Yeah.
And it shows Magneto's heroism because he's not like indignant that this attack has happened. I think part of him isn't at all surprised. He's like, yeah, of course they did. Of course they did. This is what happens when I trust people. And it's funny that like his first port of call is to protect the lowest of the citizens, the Morlocks, the people from the sewers. And I have to think that he probably remembered the promise he made to Leech in an earlier episode where he said, you don't need to be afraid again.
Oh, there's also, literally happens in this, is when he says in German, don't be afraid. Yeah.
And I just remember Leech's optimism. He's like, don't worry, everyone, Callisto will find us. And if she doesn't, Magneto will. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a Sentinel's about to get them, but Gambit saves them.
Yeah.
Saves them. He takes them out into the streets where they get slaughtered. And I don't know. It's so painful. And there's beautiful metaphor in here. So you see the Sentinel swipes at Magneto, I think, and he gets knocked flying. And he smashes into the statue of Professor X. And the statue topples over and crushes a couple of dozen mutants. And Magneto's on his knees, bleeding, stressing. In his mind, he's remembering the Holocaust, what he went through as a child. And this is probably one of my favourite moments from the episode, where he picks up a train using his powers, and he turns it into a whip to whip the Sentinels. And the reason why I find this imagery so powerful is because during the Holocaust, the Jews and all of the other undesirables, as they were called by the Nazis, were shipped around Europe on the trains. The trains were a symbol of oppression and death. And Magneto is taking that symbol and he is beating the ever-loving shit out of that Sentinel with it. Doesn't do an awful lot of good in the long run, but I found that imagery so powerful. I can't even remember what Magneto says. I think he says something like, enough! And then starts beating them. And we only watched it like 20 minutes ago, and I've already forgotten what was said.
Yeah. It's right.
They shall be avenged. That's what he says. Phrasing.
Yeah, when the Sentinel traps, or after the Sentinel traps Magnus and Leech and
the other Morlocks.
The other Morlocks, and Rogue comes out of her restraints that Magneto put them in. She goes and tries to mess the Sentinel up, but our hero, our Lord and Savior Gambit, gets on that back, and he squashes that idea of Rogue's.
Well, yeah, because she was going to get killed by that Sentinel.
Yeah.
She was absolutely going to get killed by it.
So what Gambit does is what Gambit does best, with pizzazz, I might add. And he goes after the Sentinel himself, and the Sentinel ends up stabbing him. And what really surprised me through this whole thing is because I forgot, I don't know how, but the first time I watched this, I forgot Gambit's powers. And then you realize, oh my God, Gambit's actually, he's gonna kill this Sentinel himself. Yes. Because he's like, you see that smile, they do a close-up of a smile because you think he's already dead. And then they do the close-up of the smile, and then it hits you like, I know what's gonna happen.
And that's something, I mean, what you just said kind of connected a dot in my head, that this is the reason why Gambit and Rogue are an ideal pairing. Rogue's power is activated by touch, and she views it as a curse. It's uncontrollable. She cannot be touched unless, she harms someone. Gambit's powers are also activated by touch, but they are a blessing. And he is in full control of it.
Yeah. And Gambit, I'm not going to say saves the day, but does save. Well, no, I am going to say it. Screw it. I'm going to say it. He saves the day. A very dark day that could have been a lot darker. Because instead of everyone dying, a lot of people just died.
Just thousands.
Yeah. And that very end, when Rogue realizes what's happened, she's on her knees and she's touching Gambit, and it goes to black. It doesn't fade. It's a stark goes to black, and she's like, I can't feel you anymore. And that's the end of the episode. Obviously, I missed some bits, but it's so powerful because it's not just about one character. You have so many different characters in this that pass on, and in X-Men, they can always bring someone back. Let's be honest, they have time travelers. They can always bring somebody back, but you never know if that's actually going to happen. Like, are they going to bring Gambit back or not? I would hope so.
Yeah, at the end of the season, they do tease it with Apocalypse at Genosha, and he's like, so much death. I love the Apocalypse voice, by the way. And he's like sifting through the rubble, and he picks out Gambit's Queen of Hearts card. And in the comics, Gambit was turned into one of Apocalypse's horsemen. I think he was Death. No, was he Death? I think he was. Anyway, so was Wolverine at one point. But that's something we'll talk about later on, I'm sure. So the implication there is that Apocalypse is going to bring Gambit back.
So, yeah, that's the episode, really. This episode gave me the feels.
Yeah.
Because I think you mentioned it earlier. It is so... It's beautiful in terms of how it's made, but also in terms of what you can interpret it as. So many awful things have happened to so many different groups of people in this world. As Luke mentioned, the Pulse nightclub. There was, 9/11, Vegas.
Yeah,
all of these things.
Practically anything going on in the Middle East right now.
Yes, anything. going on in the Middle East. There's countless things that you could interpret this as, and I think they did such a beautiful job. For me, I saw, just pain. And I didn't just see one thing in my head, because when I was watching it, obviously I saw the cartoon, but afterwards, when it gets you thinking, it's like, oh my God, I have like a collage of things going on in my head at the moment, because it's just, yes, these are mutants and everything, but wow, the people who wrote this and did this must have either they've had experiences like this, or they've seen it from an incredibly close view.
Yeah. Bo DeMaio, who's the lead writer on the show, is an openly gay man, and he's talked about his experiences with intolerance and bigotry, and he even had himself animated into the episode. So there's that moment where the Sentinel is about to shoot the people on the rooftop, and you see Nightcrawler like going, "Oh no!" And there's a man there, and he like holds another man with him. That one was Bo DeMaio. Yeah, so he had himself animated into it.
We love that. Yeah. So I was sad. Luke was sad.
A beautiful sadness.
Yeah, and it's one of the episodes it was the episode I was not looking forward to talking about, because it hurts, and yes, it's a cartoon, animated series, whatever you want to call it, but it's still, like, these characters you've grown to be a part of your life in a way. I know people think that's silly sometimes, but if I watch TV, like a certain TV show or something, I feel like I know these characters. I've invested parts of my life to these characters, and then to watch them have a gruesome death was hard.
And it's a heroic gruesome death.
Oh, yes, heroic gruesome death. And sometimes you just don't know what to think, because yes, you do get that teaser at the end of the series, but you didn't get that till the end of the series. I was like 5 episodes later, or 4 episodes later. And you just feel, because you can't do anything about it because it's a cartoon, and you're just like, but this character was a part of my life. Anyways, am I the only one that feels that way about stuff?
No, I'm sure you're not. I know there are people that are very upset about Gambit being dead. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
It's fine to be upset about it, but so long as it's making you have these thoughts and considering these positions. I mean, I feel a little bit like the show is preaching to the choir, at least when it comes to us, because of course,
keep on preaching.
If you're a fan of the X-Men, then you get that intolerance is not a good thing, that people deserve to be able to live their lives peacefully, even if they are different. Being different isn't necessarily wrong. They have just as much as right to exist as anyone else. And I bet the kind of people that don't believe that probably wouldn't watch X-Men, or I don't know. Yeah. I'm not entirely certain where I'm going with that thought. I was starting out saying preaching to the choir, but you know what? That's still a good thing. And I think it's good for stirring up conversation and consideration, particularly about how it applies to real-world events. Yeah.
So what I think we should do now is we should go to the comments from the last one, because I don't want to be... We're filming this. We're recording this at 8 o'clock in the morning, by the way. We've been up for a couple of hours now, and I want to hear some comments, because the comments most of the time make me feel better.
All right, first up we have the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Andre Parlon, with another one of his time-stamped tomes.
Mikey P.
So, let's get to it. At 1 minute and 58 seconds, Going forward, I'm just going to say the timestamp without, at blah, 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 etc. A good reason why I'm rewatching the animated series. Think rewatching Superman the Animated Series goes to the machine after watching Justice League Unlimited's Divided We Fall and what happens to Speedy Red Arrow in Young Justice. I want to know where and when exactly the switch seems to have begun. Movie Scott Summers could be worse. He might have become chess master, manipulator, comic book Cyclops. 403. Stargate SG-1, Lyrical Naoa. It has begun already. El Goonish Shive, She-Ra and the Princess of Power, and the Owl House fans will appreciate that.
Do you watch Stargate?
No. 455. Ultimately, lots of schemes and plots in the Marvel 92131 verse are pretty much childish in hindsight. Even Teen Titans seems more logical with its occasional funny episodes villains plan.
I love Teen Titans. I'm going to say this every time you say that. Big make it be.
Also, the time travel stuff here is very much meandering compared to the likes of the DCAU Edge of Tomorrow and Steins Gate. 806, tell that to Rogue's childhood beau from X-Men the Animated Series Season 2 finale Love in Vain. Was that Cody? I think his name was Cody. You have to say it that way.
Cody.
The Goblin Queen sure is Nam Charm galore. Guess X-Men 97 in pacing feels like Babylon 5 Season 4 all over again. Anyone still fondly remember that? By the way, Season 5 minus Sleeping in the Light is still unnecessary for me. X-Men 97 Season 2 onwards sorely does need 13 plus episodes each to remedy certain flaws and expand lots and lots. Meantime, if one's well versed to those in terms of meaning, there's a difference between a Puella Magi, Madoka Magica and an Angel Beats. I understand each of those words individually, but in that combination, don't get it. I apologise. Plus 97, better last for at least 5 seasons like its predecessor, Spider-Man the Animated Series Supernatural, and as recently announced, The Boys. Seems too campy, the idea of mutant fashion. Would gladly ditch that the same way I'll ditch Batman not being a near-flawlessly combat adept as his Arkhamverse iteration, and Jim Gordon's adultery in case I do a DC Comics storyline on my own. You sure Nathan is sent to the future? He might have been sent to an alternate universe, featuring a different future. Pretty certain they said he did go to the future. But who knows these days. 1823. Corsair didn't abandon him and X Factor member Havoc, for he thought they were goners. Doesn't change the fact that they felt abandoned, as Cyclops says in this very episode.
Mm-hmm.
The animated series Season 3's orphaned ends attest to that. I swear the 97 showrunners better have a Dwayne McDuffie level lore nut in their ranks. I actually like Mojo for being loved to dislike, and it's a bit of a shame Peter Wildman isn't voicing him anymore, even for good reasons like age. Meantime, I'm more of a PC gamer nowadays, and in case the Big D does release old games, they better be polished on the platform. 22 minutes and 31.
Word.
They sure hid this respectful cameo from possible leaks quite well up till then. Jubilee Sparkle powers sure got noticeably more powerful as time went on, but that might just be me misremembering a bit. Oh, and I'm fine with Motendo, not much referencing the old games. Am not as nostalgic to them compared to Doom, Star Wars, TIE Fighter, Age of Empires 2 and more. Now, I do know what they are. In the Life-Death episode's defense, have you seen the Savage Land subplot featuring Professor X and Magneto from the animated series Season 2? Yes, I have. 2911. If I had gripes, I'm not a fan of time travel stuff in the series. Give us Avengers vs. X-Men afterwards. Oh, and also a Spider-Man Beyond distant and gritty sequel to the Spidey show set in the same verse featuring a likeable Ben O'Reilly. Sorry, Across the Spider-Verse, but your take is inferior to Spider-Man the Animated Series Season 5 iteration. And the legacy of a Parker Industries CEO philanthropist Peter Parker, if one wants a kinder outcome to the retired first Spidey.
I love Into the Spider-Verse. And that's all I have to say about that.
Speaking of Forge, just what happened to his X Factor team first seen in Season 3's Cold Comfort? No, not the new Batman Adventures. Lol. I want to see how and why they broke up their fellowship, and same with the Avengers and Defenders being noticeably absent in Marvel 92131. Isn't Desert Storm a recent event in the Marvel 92131 verse, which is set in the early to late 90s? Well, this is set in X-Men 1990. This episode, I should say, is set in 1997, long after Desert Storm. 33-35, back to the count I am. 34-23, better not be the Injustice or DCEU Superman, and biased for the Justice Lords and Kingdom Come iterations, though. 33, 34, at least the cameos are nice, though I nitpick on why Doctor Strange didn't intervene for Jean Grey's Phoenix-beleaguered behalf. 35, 14, Scrubs Season 1 to 8 are easily recommended. Ignore the apocryphal Season 9. MASH in both movie and alternate universe TV series forms are still timeless entertainment, but prepared for tissues over time.
I was never really like a Scrubs watcher. I watched like 5 minutes here and there. Mm-hmm. But it's... My brother once told me it's something that I would like.
Maybe. I had friends at university that watched it all the time. Mm-hmm. I guess I absorbed some through osmosis. And it was fine, but it's just not really the kind of show that I choose to watch.
Does it have Meredith Grey in it?
No, it doesn't.
Does it have Olivia Pope in it?
No.
Does it
is more
have
of a comedy.
Kevin Conroy in it?
No.
Lestat the Vampire?
Don't think so.
I might watch it one day, but I have to be honest, as flaky as I am, I don't know if I'm actually going to.
3553 would love to have said something for this, but unfortunately what I said seems to have expunged the long-form comment every time. 3837, good news, I somehow trudged on and finished X-Men Season 3, and I'm about to finish Spider-Man Season 2 as of this podcast coming out. Guess my determination to really finish it all and trying to be a law nut fueled me. Strange, isn't it? 4111, a huge shame the show didn't properly end. Also a shame its sequel series, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, had its Season 3 plans onwards never happening, since they would have done their Avengers vs. X-Men take against the very same X-Men of that previous show. Really now, Marvel cartoons have brought forth more missed opportunities than DC cartoons did. Also, Jennifer Hale was quite a nice Felicia Hardy Black Cat and Spider-Man the animated series. I'm only more familiar to the Doom Patrol from the Teen Titans, and especially Batman Brave and the Bold. The live-action series I'm curious to see, though. I hope it's as good as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Seasons 1 through 5. Much better, frankly. Why did they even name the pterosaur guy Sauron? Now, look how that goes nowadays, ever since the Lord of the Rings movies made big strides. Of course, we're going to remember it for the rest of our lives. Yes, we will. I'll never forget that episode.
Should I do a podcast about Lord of the Rings?
We can do an episode about Lord of the Rings if you like.
I think I love the Lord of the Rings.
Or are you saying you want to do a third podcast?
No. It's not like an actual podcast about it, just like an episode. Or 6.
Yeah. Is this a good time to mention that we've met Ian McKellen? We went to his...
And Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah, I've met Sylvester McCoy. He was very nice. Well, you were there as well, weren't you? But
yeah, I know. I was like, why
we went to Ian McKellen's 80th birthday stage show that he was doing, celebrating his
beautiful
life. And afterwards, he was hanging around the door as people were leaving. He was collecting donations for his charity. I never carry cash, so I said to him something along the lines of, like, is there a way to pay contactlessly? And he said, you need to go over to the bar. So I did. And then on the way out, he patted Mary on the shoulder and he said, have a good evening, goodbye, take care.
And I did a faux pas. I said, thank you, Mr. McKellen, instead of Sir McKellen. And I still am so embarrassed by that.
Yeah, that's why he was just trying to push you out. Get out.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
He can touch me on the shoulder anytime, but anybody else, I would feel uncomfortable.
Anyway, moving on. David Carney. Hello, David Carney. Thank you for jumping over to the flip side. Hi, Mary and Luke. Mary, you got first billing. Marvel do like a clone story. It seems you're not a proper hero until you've been cloned. Always wondered what it would be like to have a clone. Think of the possibilities. Haven't read Grant Morrison's X-Men run. I'll have to add that to my reading list. Keep up the great work.
I'd hate having a clone of myself. Like the amount that I wouldn't be my own friend. So I would hate having a clone. I'm going to say this. She'd disappear one day.
If I had a clone, I'd make him do my day job while I just made videos all day.
Or you could do your day job and they could do the videos all day.
I like doing the videos.
You like your job too.
Sometimes.
That's like everybody.
Yes. Lowell Lucas Jr. is up next.
Hello.
So to clarify a few things, Sinister's obsessed with Jean and Scott's child leads up to him becoming X-Man if he were unaffected by the Techno-Legacy virus. Or possibly Strife if you went down a different direction, as in raised by Apocalypse. In short, this child has a lot of power and potential for the future that exceeds Sinister's wildest expectations. I do feel bad for Logan. The man truly loves Jean, but he knew that his feelings for her weren't the time or the place, only to help Jean remember. I was just as confused as he was when she went up and kissed him anyway. I'm like, whoa, dude. At least no one can call him a relation breaker on this one. Any thoughts to add on that, Mary?
Logan is not Scott. And he gave up the gown.
Yeah.
He gave up the idea of the gown. And he's a gentleman. Scott can be a gentleman at times, but then he went and got himself into another love triangle.
Yeah. I'm starting to think that he's just got a kink for love triangles.
Yeah, and Logan didn't go and get himself in another one.
No.
I'm just saying, who's the better character there? Logan.
Yeah. All right, so on to the last comment from A1ML33Y, although you told us your name was Julia Raul. That might be Julia Raul. I apologise if I've mispronounced your name. And the comment is, I love X-Men 97 for the complicated soap opera, and the episodes with Jean and Maddie made me geek out because I read those Inferno issues from the 80s, and that was my peak hype for the X-Men as a reader, even though I got into comics because of the 92 X-Men animated series. I know I watched Batman, the animated series, and X-Men both as a kid, but X-Men and Spidey I got into a little bit more because of the serialized storytelling, where BTAS felt like 20-minute, half-hour mini-movies. Batman the Animated Series didn't have much soap opera going on in the show, with Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, and even Renee Montoya romantic relationships from episode to episode. Superman the Animated Series was light soap opera, and Justice League Unlimited had some great love triangles with Jon Stewart, Hawkgirl and Vixen, also Black Canary and Green Arrow, Question and Huntress. While in Teen Titans I really like the soap opera of Robin and Starfire, Beast Boy and Terra, and Cyborg and Jinx. I hope this new Batman animated series, The Caped Crusader, has some soap opera and romantic subplots, and all the great stuff that X-Men 97 did in its 10 episodes.
Well, I'll tell you what, from that trailer, it looks like it's going to be a hell of a good show. And if it's not, I will write a complaint on... I will write a 1-star review on Amazon, because it's an Amazon show. And I'll be like, you could have done so much better. And then I'll tell them what they could have done better.
Eat that, Bruce Timm.
Like, Brucey T, I have faith in you.
Yeah, I know. It'll come as no surprise to anyone listening that I think Caped Crusader is going to be fantastic, and I can't wait to talk more about it. One thing I just wanted to say really quickly, I am so surprised at how excited so many people seem to be about Onomatopoeia being in the show. You don't know who Onomatopoeia is. He's an obscure Green Lantern character created by Kevin Smith, who he doesn't really say anything apart from sound effects. So if he's about to shoot someone, he goes bang and then shoots them.
Yeah, I know what an onomatopoeia is. I was like, are we back in high school English?
But he's in the trailer. You saw him because he goes bang. And I've just had like dozens and dozens of comments on that video that I made of people like going, oh my god, Onomatopoeia, I'm so hyped, yes. So maybe I should do a quick video about Onomatopoeia. It'll probably only be about 2 minutes long because there's not an awful lot to say about him. But I could talk about his connection to Batman, I suppose. Yes. The cogs in my head are turning.
Yeah, so that is today's episode. I hope you guys liked it. Yes, it wasn't as fun and high energy as some of our episodes are, but unfortunately, like with life, sometimes it's not as nice. And this episode, although beautiful and one of the best episodes in a cartoon / animated series I've ever seen, the hurt I feel is still there.
Yeah.
So the next episode is going to be episode 6. And do you remember episode 6?
Yeah, it's the one with Professor X in space.
Yes.
And the remaining part of Life, Death. We'll
also kind of meld it with Bright Eyes as well.
Episode 7.
Yeah.
Because, like when we talked about Inferno and Motendo / Life, Death Part 1, one of those 2 episodes we weren't as fond of, and the same is true of these 2 episodes. So we'll cover these 2 in a singular podcast episode. And
I think after that, the episode after that, episode 7, will also combine episode 8 and 9 together.
And 10.
Oh, and 10.
Yeah, because it's a 3-parter.
Yeah. Oh, they're known for that.
Yes. They had like 20... No, that was Spider-Man that had 20-part stories, and X-Men had like 5-parters.
So, thank you guys so much for listening to this and just being a part of my little community, our little community. And I really hope you guys have a great day. And happy Pride. It's the last few days of Pride Month. But I celebrate Pride all year round, and I will continue to talk about it on this podcast as well. So I hope you guys are okay. Well, I don't care if you're okay with it. I'm still going to do it because it's my podcast. It's also y'all's podcast too. Let's be real. All right. I will see y'all and talk to y'all later. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.